Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, if you watched some of my previous videos, welcome back. But honestly, I haven't posted in a very long time because life just kind of got in the way and I really just didn't. But I want to make some changes. I'm making a lot of changes to my channels, my podcasts, everything, and so I want to welcome you back and welcome you to, I guess, what will be my drive time stories. I thought I could take this opportunity just to share stories, information, things that I have learned while I drive, because that is generally the easiest, best time for me to get some things done, because I have a very long commute. I commute for about an hour each way between here and my office. So I thought this was the perfect opportunity. Let me kind of catch you up on some things that have been going on. So my piggies are now a year old, and I just took them to the vet on Friday and got them spayed. This is supposed to help with some behavioral issues I was having. Both of them would, at certain times of the month, would get very snippy and kind of have a bit of an attitude, but Scarlett especially was just getting really mean toward Willow, just very bullying and pushing her around, and so I thought I really needed to do something, and this was supposed to help with that. Sorry about that. That railroad track was pretty bumpy. So I took them in and got them spayed. Found out Scarlett weighs a whopping 89 pounds. Willow is a whole 33 pounds. There's such a huge difference. And that's what's always worried me about the behavior between Scarlett and Willow, because Scarlett gets kind of mean and like pushes Willow around, backs her into corners, and just really seems to, I'm afraid she's going to hurt her because she's so much bigger. So I was hoping that this would help. Well, it was, if you lived anywhere in my neighborhood, you probably thought a hellmouth had opened and demons were coming out when I was trying to get Scarlett to the car. She does not like a leash, and she fought me and she screamed. She didn't want to leave the house. It was kind of funny, but not really, because here I am trying to coax this 89-pound pig to walk for me while she's thrashing around and throwing herself around trying to get loose from me and screaming like I'm killing her. And I wasn't. We got her to the vet, had people help us and everything, took them in. She had some complications in her surgery. Nothing major, it just took longer than they had expected. And so she was under a lot longer than they had expected her to be, but she came out of it well and did well. Then Willow did really well with hers and stuff, and when we went to pick them up, they take us into this room, and all of a sudden we hear this demonic squeal from somewhere deeper in this veterinary clinic. It was Scarlett. I knew immediately it was Scarlett. They told me that they were taking her IV out and basically had put their hand on her back to let her know that they were there, and she started screaming in this very low-pitched squeal that was funny, very funny. But they did say that they were really, really sweet and wonderful and did really well. Got them home. They spent Friday night and Friday night and Saturday basically sleeping. Didn't feel like doing much of anything. I couldn't blame them there, because they were, in pain. They ate, took their medicine, and slept. And then Sunday night, Scarlett goes after Willow, or Sunday morning, I guess it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. I guess that's why it felt like night. I wake up to them fighting, and Scarlett is going after Willow, and she's pinned against the door. Willow's squealing. Scarlett's got her head squished into Willow's stomach, so I separate them. And since then, Scarlett has been very moody toward Willow, and she's really wanted more loving than normal, and I tried to give it to her, but man, has she been a bully to Willow. Willow even slept by herself last night, which they never sleep by themselves. They always sleep together. And she ran Willow out of the bedroom last night and would not let her sleep with her. So I don't know what's going on there. I've reached out to some of my groups to see, if anybody can help me with this and what I need to do to help them to get along. But for now, we'll see how this plays out. But they are really the sweetest. Scarlett, even though she was kind of bullying Willow, she would lay and I knew she was hurting because she was crying a little bit. And as soon as I would start petting her head and face, she would stop crying and just lay there with me. She really needed her mama loving. So, that's my piggies. The dogs are doing great. They are absolutely adorable and wonderful and sweet as usual. Everybody else is doing great and stuff. The podcast is still going. Murder and Mystery is still going. I have not gotten the new Supernatural podcast up yet. I'm trying to get several stories done and create and recorded so that I'm not way behind like I get with Murder and Mystery. I wanted to just make sure that I had enough done up. So I'm working on that and some other things that I'll announce as we go. But I've spent the last 8 minutes just giving updates that are probably pretty boring. So I thought today I would give you some funny paranormal stories that aren't quite paranormal, but they are pretty hilarious, from things that have happened to me, to my family, and things that were just really funny that gave us a laugh. I thought I would share those with you while I make my drive here. So the first story that I wanted to share is, as a kid, it was kind of scary, but it was also funny, the way that it happened, and looking back at it now, it's hilarious because it wasn't just me that got scared. My cousin who was doing all this got scared too. So, growing up, I had these cousins that we spent a lot of time together, and during our time together, we spent a lot of time trying to scare each other. Just trying to see who would get scared first, who could get scared the most, who could tell the scariest story, do the scariest things, so that was how we spent our time. And especially during the summer when school was out, we spent a lot of time at each other's houses doing these things. For example, we had a baby doll. My sister and I had this baby doll, and it was just a plastic baby doll with blonde hair that the hair was sticking up everywhere. It was just a really old doll that we had had forever. And during the summer, this was Child's Play came out. The movie Child's Play came out. And we had all seen this movie. And I was fairly young, like in elementary school. But we'd seen this movie. I grew up on horror movies. I've been watching those my whole life. And we'd seen this movie. And we decided this doll looked like Chucky. For some reason, I don't know why, but I decided this doll looked like Chucky. And so we would take turns that entire summer hiding the doll with each other. My sister and I would do this to each other when my cousins weren't there, but when my cousins were there, you know, we would make pallets on the floor and we would all sleep in the floor in the living room, and we would take turns taking this doll and hiding it with the other person to scare the other person. And we would all pretend to be extremely scared when we woke up and this doll was in the bed with us, or when we found the doll in some odd place, you know, and really pretended that this doll was moving, even though we knew we were moving this doll ourselves. We were doing this, and we thought that it was hilarious. So anyway, the story that I want to tell you, though, has nothing to do with the doll. It was a story my cousin, my male cousin that we called Rabbit, was telling us to scare us about a mythical creature. I can't even remember what he called it. I don't remember the description of the creature or anything, but we were all in the living room, lights off, and I do have to say that I lived out in the country, so that kind of plays into this too. I lived out in the country, and so it's really dark in there, and we're in the living room, we got the lights off, and he's telling us the story about this creature that there's this whistle you can do, and if you do the whistle just right, this creature will come up and it will kill everybody but the person who summoned it. And that was the big thing, that it would kill everybody except for the people, that the person who had summoned it. And so he's telling us these stories about this thing coming and killing all these people, and he's like, do you want to try it? I know the whistle. And we're all like, yeah. So it was my one male cousin who was older than us, and then there were the three girls, myself, my sister, and then his little sister. And we're all saying, yeah, and we all gather on my front porch, again, out in the country, and he does this whistle. And we stop and we listen, and we don't hear anything, and we're like, you're so crazy, that wasn't real. And then he does the whistle again, and then we hear leaves rattling, and we hear footsteps, and we hear running footsteps coming around the house, and he gets so scared he starts backing through us, through these three little girls, and kids kind of back toward the door, and he's going, come on, in the house. And then our little puppy runs around the side of the house through the leaves and had scared the crap out of all of us. So I thought that was really funny, because at the time it wasn't funny. And at the time we even convinced ourselves that it wasn't Petey, my puppy, that had come around the side of the house. It was really something else that was chasing Petey, and that's why Petey ran up there. Now, as an adult, I know, my cousin standing on the porch whistling, and it woke my dog up, and so my dog was like, oh, somebody's calling to me, and took off running to us. So anyway, I just thought that one was kind of funny. I also have a couple of stories about my grandma, and these are stories that my grandma told me that I found to be really, really funny. The first story occurred when she lived in this house that was grandma lived out in the country, and it was just her and my grandpa in this house. And their bedroom was in the back of the house. And so you went through this, down this hall, and to the left was their bedroom. And so it was quite a ways from the living room. And so at night, my grandma would usually go back to her bedroom and would watch TV, turn on the TV. And my grandpa would watch TV in the living room because they watched different things. And my grandma liked to lay in bed and watch TV. So they would do that, and then my grandpa would turn off the TV and get ready for bed, and he would come in there, and usually my grandma would have fallen asleep with the TV going, and he would start getting ready for bed, and she would wake up, and she would turn off the TV. And this had been going on for years. They lived in this house for years. This was a routine that, they did all the time. Well, one night, this happens, and he comes in and he goes into the bathroom, and she wakes up and she's like, oh, okay, it's time to go to bed. And she turns off the TV. And a few minutes later, she starts hearing talking in the living room. And so she calls out to my grandpa and asks, what's going on? Is somebody here? And my grandpa's like, no. And she's like, did you forget to turn off the TV in the living room? And he's like, no, I turned off the TV. And so he goes in there, and the TV's on. So he turns it off, and he's like, well, maybe I forgot to turn off the TV. Next night, this same kind of thing happens again. She turns off the TV, and then hears noises in the living room, and the TV in the living room's on. And this keeps happening. And some nights it doesn't. Some nights nothing happens. She turns off the TV and nothing happens. And then other nights, she'll turn off the TV and find the TV in the living room is on. So then one night, my grandpa was gone for a work trip. And so it's just my grandma there. And she goes back, she checks all the doors, all the windows, everything's locked up. TV's off in the living room, lights are off, everything. Goes back to the bedroom. She turns on her TV. She's watching TV. And then she turns off her TV to go to bed, and the TV in the living room is on. And she goes in there, and she's like, but she hadn't watched TV in the living room like all day. That TV hadn't been on. And so she was wondering, okay, what is going on? So she started messing with it and realized that I guess at times it depended on the angle of the remote. I guess the signal would bounce around through the hall and somehow catch the TV in the living room, which seemed really weird. But it only happened when the remote was at a certain angle, which was why it would happen sometimes and sometimes it wouldn't. But she played around with it and finally was getting the TV to come on consistently in the living room with the remote from the bedroom. So she solved that mystery, but when she told us, it was hilarious. She thought that it was just so funny. Another story of my grandma's. Again, it has to do with the TV, which I guess is really kind of scary when you think about it. You've got this TV that, just comes on when it shouldn't. But they were in a different house this time. They had moved to Sapulpa, and they were living in a different house. And stay there waiting. And so she waited until almost time that this would happen. And she got up. So my grandma was mainly in a wheelchair. She could walk short distances with a walker. So she got up and got her walker. And she was, walking into the living room with this walker to find out what was going on and catch her ghost. So she goes into the kitchen and she kind of stands there in the shadows in the, right in the doorway of the hall in the kitchen, and she can see the chair, she can see the TV, she can see everything in the living room. And on the back of the chair is her cat. And her cat's curled up on the back of this chair. And then at around between 3 and 3:30, her cat stands up and stretches and jumps down onto the arm of the chair where the remote is, hits the remote, turns on the television, and then jumps off the chair. TV's on, chair's rocking. And my grandma's like, okay, so my cat's the ghost. But, she managed to catch her ghost, right? But that was so funny because she was really scared about this ghost. And the last story I want to tell you is one that you may have heard in one of my podcasts, because I know my daughter told this story in her podcast. In my podcast, I'm sorry, not her podcast, in my podcast, but she told her story in my podcast. So at one time, we lived in this old rent house. And in this house, you came in and you had the living room, and to the right, you had my son's bedroom. And then you went into this little doorway, and there's like this little mini hall thing, and there's a bathroom, and then my daughters shared a room, and so they had their room. And then the other side of the house, the other side of the living room, there was a doorway that went into the kitchen, and you went through the kitchen, and there was, to the right, there was a small hallway, and there was a bathroom and my bedroom. And then you would go straight, or you could go straight into the laundry room, and there was a door going outside to the backyard. And there was also a door to the left that went into this little garage area. And the garage area had doors that were on the front of the garage that we had locked with the padlock, but it also had a regular door at the back that had a regular lock that you could just unlock and go out into the backyard. So that's the layout of this small little house. So this was a night that my daughter was home alone. And my daughter at this time, she was 17 years old. She's home by herself. And it's night, but it's not really late. I think that night my husband and I had gone out on a date. And Katie and Caleb, her siblings, had gone over to a friend's, and then they were coming home. And she was just there by herself. She may have been 16, not 17, but she was older, 16 or 17, somewhere in there. And so she's sitting there, and it is maybe 7 o'clock, maybe 7, because my husband and I, we don't stay out late, we both are kind of homebodies, and we work a lot, so we definitely don't stay out late. So it wasn't too late, and she is sitting in the living room, and sorry, I got kind of distracted. That car in front of me that was going really slow. Anyway, she's sitting in the living room, and she's watching TV, when she says that she heard a noise that sounded like bedroom. And so she kept looking, because the way that the furniture was situated, the back of the couch faced, like, the couch was facing the front, and so you had to walk behind the couch to get to the kitchen, and the hallway and stuff in her bedroom was like to the back of the couch too. So she is kind of trying to look over her shoulder and see what's in her bedroom, and she has decided, while she's hearing this noise, she has decided that a murderer has come into the house. When she went to get dinner, she had taken my car, had gone and got herself dinner, and had come home, and sometime during that 10-15 minutes while she went and got her fast food, a murderer somehow broke into the house without disturbing anything, without breaking a window, without forcing the door open, somehow broke into the house and was in her bedroom, rustling around in her bedroom, waiting on her to come back there. So she says she is trying to figure out how to get the dog and the cat. At that time, we had Tigger and Abby. Trying to figure out how to get them out and to my car without alerting this murderer that is in her bedroom that she's leaving. And so she's sitting there trying to look behind her, trying to make this plan, trying to see, who she can see in there. Now, mind you, the dog is not barking, and the cat's just laying there on the chair like nothing's going on. They don't seem to think anybody's in the house, but she's convinced somebody is in the house with her. So she comes up with this plan that instead of going out the front door and going to the next door neighbor and getting help, instead of calling me or her dad or calling my sister who lives like a mile away from us to see if they could come over and help her, she is going to get the dog and the cat. She is not going to go straight from the couch to the front door that is maybe 5 feet away, and then to the car that is parked on the road directly in front of the house. She's going to get the dog and the cat. She's going to sneak around the couch, past the hallway where her bedroom is. So she's going to go past that instead of away from that, into the kitchen, to the back of the house, out the back door, around the house, past the window to her bedroom, where this murderer supposedly is, back around past the front door, into the car, carrying the dog and cat. So you see that logic, right? She gets up, she picks up the dog and the cat, she walks into the kitchen, hears a noise behind her, stops and listens and realizes that the whole time this noise that she's hearing is the ice maker in the refrigerator. So she's standing in the kitchen with the dog under one arm, the cat under the other arm, with this plan of sneaking out of the house because the ice maker in the refrigerator was going to kill her. So my daughter also told me later, when she was telling me the story, that she also realized when she found out that it was really the ice maker and not a murderer in her bedroom, that she had left her keys on the table in the living room, so she didn't even have a key to the car. So I don't know what she was planning on doing, but anyway, that is her story you enjoyed some of my stories and enjoyed the first part of my drive with me. I will be back soon